Hey, so in this segment, I'm going to be talking about how Alzheimer's disease begins, called collapse of the synapse. As you know, it starts with the synapse, and by the synapse, I mean when two brain cells, so this is a neuron, this is one neuron, this is the other neuron. A synapse is when two brain cells come together, and there are about 500 trillion of them, so quite a lot of them. And the way the brain works, whether it's to form a memory or to retrieve a memory or to pick up this or to say hi or to speak, to hear, to whatever the brain is going to do, it has to happen at the level of the synapse. In other words, there has to be some kind of transmission of information from one neuron, one brain cell to the other brain cell. If this doesn't happen, then that function is lost. So the information comes in through this brain cell, it sends it down its spine, sends it down what is known as an axon, and then it gets to the other brain cell. So there you go. And this is what happens throughout the brain. Okay. When it comes to Alzheimer's disease, what they're finding out is that there's almost like an initiation program, a self-destruct program that has been initiated by the brain itself that actually shuts down this process here. So basically, it shuts them down, and then the nerve cells actually they atrophy, they deteriorate, they die off, kind of like twigs cut off a branch and the twigs die off first. That's what happens with it here. The brain is the one actually doing that to you. Well, why on earth would the brain do that to you? Well, there's been a lot of explanations and a lot of sequences, chemical reactions that they're looking at. It's quite complicated. In other words, I can't tell you right off the bat. But bottom line is that this is what happens. And it usually starts in the memory centers in the hippocampus of the brain, and then it spreads from that to the point where the person eventually at the deathbed, they are not able to breathe, or they have an infection, or the brain just shuts down. And if your brain shuts down, pretty much you're not alive anymore. And what we have to do is to understand the chemical processes. You don't have to understand it, but we have to understand it so we can select and actually intelligently address these things. Now, it may differ from one patient to the next, but there are some general things that we talk about when we approach Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. So there are about 7 areas that we look at to seek to not only stop the process, but also to reverse the damage that has been done, heal the brain, heal those nerve cells, so that the human being, the individual, can continue functioning. So it's not like we're curing or treating Alzheimer's disease. I won't go as far as saying that. What we're doing is that we are looking at the brain, looking at what has happened to it, and looking to see how we can support, nourish, nurture that brain back to functionality and possibly even good health. It's almost like you have sickle cell disease, and I can use this as an example. And you're not have before when you used to have the crisis, you couldn't walk, you break your leg, you have your chest is affected. We can, without reversing the disease, without reversing the diagnosis of sickle cell disease, you can have sickle cell disease and yet not have those symptoms, those tragic occurrences that have happened to you, simply by intelligently approaching this, by supporting the brain cells. So that is our approach. Again, it is not about treatment, it's about supporting the brain, supporting the individual so they function in spite of the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. More information on our website, so please feel free to get into it. Cheers. Bye.